AdvocatesROC was founded as a social enterprise to serve the public and enhance democracy through philosophy, public legal trainings, and strategic nonprofit partnerships to promote individual and social resilience, expand social opportunity, and encourage creative policy solutions to advance the public good. Our founder, Dr. Kathy Purnell, is a political theorist and attorney by training who has over 2 decades of combined experience as a professor, attorney, and nonprofit administrator. AdvocatesROC's programming, whether it includes our resiliency retreats, our group trainings, or our individualized executive and life coaching programs, the goal is the same: to encourage the development of foundational critical thinking skills, provide opportunities to refine one's normative positions on social and political issues, opportunities for public discussion and debate on controversial topics, to explore the historical development of social and political philosophy, and to directly experience how and why political philosophy is not something that should ever be confined or limited to a particular class of historical figures and authors. One thing I would compel us to really think about is, why does Gustave de Beaumont choose to have this interracial couple that is the focus of the novel Marie? Why did they flee to Michigan, and why did they attempt to live in the wilderness? There are several really compelling things to think about in terms of its critique of racism, right, and the different forces that drove the couple, the interracial couple, to try to flee society and live at peace together in the wilderness. It's a work that I think is definitely worth reading, definitely undervalued, but well worthwhile, because many of the themes that are pursued in the work are clearly still significant today. So, happy birthday, Gustave. Dr. Purnell was born into a military family and raised in New York City, a city neither of her parents had hailed from. Her mother had immigrated to the United States from Seoul. Her father was born in Alabama and had enlisted in the military before it was officially desegregated. Her father had nevertheless committed himself to build a career in the military for nearly a quarter century. With her parents' love and support, she was able to not only be the first in her immediate family to obtain a 4-year degree, but graduated from Harvard University, obtained a PhD in political theory from Cornell University, and graduated with a JD from the DePaul University College of Law. Her experiences with racial hybridity and her reflections on the nature of community ultimately fueled her love of philosophy and a love of universals. If you think about it, these odd questions, these normative questions about what is justice, what is the nature of equality, what are our rights as citizens in a democracy, these are all questions that we constantly think about, or we might have thoughts about in the back of our mind. We just don't spend as much time as most of these historical thinkers in writing them down, or writing these thoughts down and reflecting on what our answers to these normative questions are. That's what I hope that we all do, and that's why we're convened here today. So, I also like to share thoughts on what philosophy is, and I have a really great quote that I like to share. So this is by Gilles Deleuze in his essay, What is Philosophy? As he describes it, the philosopher is the concept's friend. Philosophy is not a simple art of forming, inventing, or fabricating concepts. Philosophy is the discipline of creating concepts. Concepts are not waiting for us ready-made like heavenly bodies. They must be invented, fabricated, and would be nothing without their creator's signature. What I hope that we all take from that quote, right, or take from Deleuze's idea, is that we should always distrust concepts in the public sphere that we don't author ourselves, right? Kind of along the lines of what the purpose of political philosophy is, the types of normative questions that we should be compelled to think about. We should also be responsible in authoring our own answers and our own concepts. And that's something that we're going to work through together. We take the position that we are all capable of authoring concepts that bear our signatures, but most of us do not engage in extensive reflection on our ideas, nor write them down, even though reflecting upon the context, foundation, and historical evolution of our normative perspectives on concepts like justice, equality, rights, and leadership are all essential to our effective participation in public life. This type of concept authoring is something that everyone implicitly does and should intentionally do as participants in a democracy to improve public policy and become engaged. Philosophy too often is dismissed as being too abstract from, or not relevant to, or worse, of being incapable of transforming our public life. All of us should embrace our role as philosophers and create our own concepts, become aware of the contexts that generate our ideas, and share those perspectives with the public to improve our common democratic culture. As Maurice Merleau-Ponty noted in his essay In Praise of Philosophy, the philosopher is the man who wakes us and speaks. A man contains silently in himself the paradoxes of philosophy. Honestly, I really don't understand how people cannot embrace the idea of Rousseau's general will. I mean, Rousseau has been an incredibly significant and important philosopher to me personally. So, I think, it's hard for me to describe, how indebted I am to him. In a lot of ways, both his first and second discourses have directly influenced my life. I mean, his first discourse, which specifically talks about arts and the sciences, that basically introduced me to ethics, because what I realized when I thought about the answer that he posed to the question, do the arts and sciences advance humanity? And his answer is not necessarily. That was really an eye-opener for me when I was really young, because at that time I was pre-med. I thought for certain that I would become a scientist or a doctor, and I hadn't really considered any other type of career. And so, a second discourse on inequality basically gave me a framework to think about and critique social inequality, to the point where my whole concept of democratic irony is born out of that type of analysis. Philosophy helps us to cultivate an open and curious mind and draws upon centuries of wisdom to empower us to design approaches to life's difficult questions, decisions, and events. Well, welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kathy Cornell, and I'm a member of the Western Michigan University MLK Celebration at WMU. We are delighted that the weather cooperated and that you were all able to join us today for an amazing afternoon of poetry. This is our second year of the Courage to Create competition for grades 7 through 12. And as you may know, this is a collaboration with Kalamazoo Public Schools and surrounding districts, which seeks to encourage creative writing and reflection on the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration theme. The judges this year, which included 6 community judges, were all distinguished poets in their own right, and they were very impressed this year with the quality of writing submitted. Our format is one where we want to encourage all of our participants to continue to write and to share their voices. So we've asked all of these judges to come join us today and develop a group reading with all of you. So we're very excited to provide this opportunity. One example of how we integrate philosophy into the performing arts is demonstrated by Divorce Professional, a play that is available for license for performance at universities and other nonprofit agencies that are interested in exploring questions of racial marginalization and sexual harassment in professional contexts.
Whatever happens, always remember what I have told you about what it means to be a philosopher. A philosopher is the concept's best friend. When you devote yourself to that type of friendship, you become scholars. No matter what your employment, personal, or other situation in life, always remember to engage in intellectual work, even if no one appears to appreciate it nor expect it from you. Bell Hooks said it best: intellectual work differs from academic work precisely because one does not need to undertake a formal course of study or strive for degrees to live the life of the mind.